businesses are often started by a small group of people, referred to as the entrepreneurial team. If a new business is started just by one person, we have an entrepreneurial team of one. And speaking of that, it's important to make a distinction between a business started by one person who intends to hire more people or bring on more team members as things gain momentum, and a business started by one person who intends for the business to stay a one-person endeavor. In both cases, entrepreneurial thinking is needed, but the single-person business will avoid some of the complexities faced by a traditional startup, such as the entrepreneurial team. But for the rest of you who already have a team or intend to have one, the entrepreneurial team is another one of those core components of entrepreneurship that you need to juggle. Some entrepreneurial teams form almost as if by accident. For example, you're taking this course, possibly with a number of friends, and you and your friends might decide to start a company together. And in fact, it's very important for entrepreneurial team members to know and trust each other. So starting a business with your friends can be quite a good idea. There are some very important things that the entrepreneurial team needs to agree on. In the first place, the entrepreneurial team members should share a vision for the company. What is it that they hope to achieve? Each entrepreneurial team member should tell roughly the same story about the company. Secondly, they need to agree on whether the company should stay small or strive for global domination. If they don't agree on this, it'll be very difficult for them to make decisions about hiring or investing in facilities. Thirdly, there should be agreement about the level of commitment expected from team members. If one team member is putting in 14-hour days, 6 days a week, and another one is showing up only on Tuesday afternoons, there's bound to be friction. There's a lot to be said for including diversity on the entrepreneurial team. Starting a business with a group of people who are all roughly the same age, the same gender, and all have the same educational background might not be the best recipe for success. If at all possible, you should include at least one person with entrepreneurial experience on the team. You should include both genders. And perhaps most crucially, to bring the greatest amount of expertise and experience to the table, you should try to include people with different education and work backgrounds. If you're interested in entrepreneurship because you want to be your own boss, you should stick with a single-person firm. Because if you have a team, even if you're the leader of that team, you're never truly going to be your own boss. That's because you have 4 groups of people that will exert significant influence on your company, and that's not including customers. The first group is the entrepreneurial team members themselves. We've already talked about this. Each team member will have their own ambitions and their own ideas about how to become successful. Generally, that's a good thing, but it could also be the source of quite a bit of friction. So you need to carefully nurture the relationships among team members. The second group is employees. If things take off and you get to the point where the entrepreneurial team members can no longer do everything, you're going to need to hire employees or contractors. In the knowledge economy, your employees could very quickly become your most valuable resource, and that's why nurturing relationships with employees is very important. The third group is investors. Granted, the first group of investors in your company will most likely be the entrepreneurial team or their friends or family. But if down the road at some point you need more money than you can obtain from those sources, you're going to need to seek external investors. And that brings us to another one of those core components of entrepreneurship that you need to juggle along with everything else, namely the money. We're going to devote the next unit to talking about financing new ventures. But for now, let's focus on the people behind those investments, namely the investors. They're going to want to become involved in decision-making for your company. And that brings us to the fourth group, the board of directors. When you bring in external investors, they're going to expect there to be a board of directors, or they'll want to put one in place. And the sole purpose of the board of directors is to guard the interests of shareholders. And that brings us into the realm of corporate governance. At the top, we have shareholders. They own the company. Next, we have the board of directors. And it's the shareholders who elect the board of directors and dismiss it if they're not happy with it. Next, we have the people who manage the company. It's often the case that, at least in the early days, the entrepreneurial team members make up the management team. And the management team is subject to decisions made by the board of directors. So that's why entrepreneurship is no guarantee that you'll be your own boss. Basically, the management team is entrusted with using the money provided by the shareholders to create value for those shareholders. To ensure that the management team is actually working to create value for shareholders, the board of directors provides guidance and ultimate decision-making. Managers report to the shareholders at regular intervals. Usually there's an annual meeting in which the managers present the company's financial statements to shareholders. Next are employees. They're managed by the managers and report to them, but employees also exert pressure on managers about things like pay and working conditions. In fact, managers are often subject to quite a bit of pressure from both customers and from society. So although managing a company can be a wonderful adventure, managers do tend to be pressured from all sides.